Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of VertoTalks on Air. I'm Nicole. I'm part of the growth team at Verto Digital. Um, I think we can start with the session as there are already some people in. So maybe first, for those of you who may not know us yet and what Verto does, Verto Digital is a digital marketing agency. Our passion and what we specialize in is basically helping B2B companies grow their marketing generated pipeline through services in data analytics, advertising, and SEO. And VertoTalks on Air are actually our way of bringing, the marketing community online together, diving into relevant topics from the marketing industry, sharing some practical insights from our own work and projects, and just basically these sessions are designed to be super practical, focused, and hopefully useful for you. And of course, open to everyone who wants to join us and um, share their own perspective. So today, we're diving into something that's been driving real results for our clients lately. And this is using LinkedIn's predictive audiences to find high intent prospects and lower cost per lead. I'm joined by two of our advertising pros, Daniela Ranova and Galina Yurukova, who will walk you through how predictive audiences work, the setup they use, and some tweaks and tips of how to um, set it up for best results or for better results to say. As we go, you can drop your questions in the comments, and at the end we'll go through as many as we can. So, yep. With that, I will hand things over to Gala and Dani to kick off this session.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. Hello, everyone. We're super excited to share with you today our topic and to dive deeper into predictive audiences. This is something we've been working on with Dani for, I think, almost a year, Dani. It's been since we started working with predictive audiences across accounts. So, yes, we're super eager to share the results and the tips and tricks we were able to pick up along the way. Okay, so let's share the presentation. Dani, do you mind sharing it from your end?
Can you see it?
Wait a second. Yes.
There we go.
Great. So today we are going to have a look at lookalike versus predictive audiences, what's changed, why it matters. We're gonna walk you through how we set up predictive audiences, how it works with the signals, with the modeling, the setup. We'll show you 2 case studies which we worked on. Then we'll go through measurement and optimization. And at the end, we're going to talk about how predictive audiences can fit into your strategy today. Okay, so essentially, previously we had lookalike audiences that were with which we were able to find a similar audience to a core audience which we already had. So first-party data audience which we already had, we were able to find similar people to those in our first-party audience. With predictive audiences, it works a little bit differently because it uses LinkedIn's predictive AI modeling, which combines millions of engagements on LinkedIn. We're able to reach people who are more likely to take action based on similar characteristics or behavior. And these ones are based on factors such as product affinities, predictive lifetime value. So it takes into consideration a lot more than what lookalike audiences used to do.
So how do they look like specifically in LinkedIn? Essentially, they use a source data. and we can use a couple of different sources for these predictive audiences. We can use lead gen forms. We can also use first-party data, such as contact lists from our CRM. We can use CSV uploads. We can use even third-party lists. We can also use conversions, which are based on the insight tag with LinkedIn, or they could be from the conversion API, or also they could be from website actions, such as, for example, certain visits or anything like that. And furthermore, they can also be based on retargeting audiences. That could be from anything. There are a couple of notes here on how they work actually within LinkedIn. They are refreshed every single day, essentially meaning, as Gala mentioned, that they are based on behavioral characteristics such as predicted behavioral characteristics, meaning which members are most likely to engage in a certain way, but based on a seed audience. So this list is actually refreshed every single day. So we provide a seed list, for example, from today, and then the next day, the predictive audience, the members, they would have been filtered. Some of them would be filtered out, and some new members could be added as well. This is automatic. And within a single account, we can have up to 100 predictive audiences. We cannot make any more as of yet. I'm not sure whether that would change, but as of now, this is the case. And this is just kind of a graphic on how this looks like. What we provide LinkedIn's AI, as I mentioned, it could be anything. Today, we'll mostly talk about first-party data and conversions API, because this is what we experimented with the most. And essentially, LinkedIn's AI just takes all of this data and finds, members who are similar to these audiences. There could be some differences within the audience that LinkedIn's AI creates, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, most importantly, the key here is that it finds members that are the most likely to engage in a certain way. So it wouldn't be just members who match certain job titles. It would be members who match certain job titles plus would be most likely to fill out a form, for example. This is quite the key here. In terms of the audiences and how they are created, firstly, we need to consider not only the seed list, but we need to consider the location. We create each predictive audience based on different locations. So we can create one which is global. We can create different ones for just separate regions. And here we show kind of an example of how this could look like. The kind of best practice is to not exceed 100 times past the seed audience. Meaning, for example, if we have a seed audience like here, which is 17,000, we shouldn't make it 100 times larger than this. This is kind of the max that we could do, essentially. And here's an example of how the audiences change. So, for example, we have provided a seed audience, which is 70,000 people. And then we've created an audience that is only in North America. So this seed audience could be from members from all over the world, but this predictive audience would be only for North America. And we've set it to 18,000 because at the start, we tried to kind of stick as close as possible to the seed list audience size that we have provided. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the predictive audiences add a couple of more job titles, or maybe not job titles, but yes, job titles, but any other essentially targeting that we haven't necessarily given or we don't necessarily want. So we still have to add exclusions. And once we add those, you can see these examples here, how much the audience actually falls. Now, with LinkedIn, usually larger audience is better because it is easier to target. It is more efficient in terms of cost. However, with the predictive audiences, these smaller sizes aren't actually that much of a problem. Yes, they do increase, some of the metrics, which we will talk about a little bit later, but O&O, this audience size, no matter how small it is, it doesn't stop them from serving, which is pretty significant.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
Have you tested predictive audiences with like bigger audience, like 100 times bigger, as it is mentioned in the best practice?
If I can jump
yeah.
here real quick. What we're showing here is how we approached the audience size to begin with Danny, with our first account when we tested predictive audiences. Afterwards, we've expanded a little bit. So I think currently in this account, which we're showing data for, I think we've increased that up to 60 times. And there is another account which we're working with that we have increased the audience up to 100 times. So exactly how much it is in the best practice. And it is working really well. So I think if it's up to 100, as they say in the best practice, yes, it works. We haven't really tested anything beyond 100 times bigger.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. And now moving on to a couple more details on these audiences.
Yes, so initially when we decided to test predictive audiences last year, we were wondering how to approach them. We decided we're going to use first-party data with one of our clients, and we started collecting lists based on the different lifecycle stages that they had in their CRM. So we had a separate list for opportunities, which were closed won. Then we had to combine the lists for SALs and SQLs just because of volume restrictions. The third test we did was with MQLs. And lastly, we also tested ICP leads, which is something of a custom metric we have within this client's account. It signifies a conversion that is between a lead and an MQL. It shows us that the leads coming through have the correct job titles. This is what qualifies them as ICP leads. So in general, this is how we began working with predictive audiences. And our initial thought was that the more bottom funnel the seed audience was coming from, then the better quality the predictive audience leads will have. In this case, this didn't turn out to be true because we did have actually really, really good leads, both from predictive audiences from opportunities and predictive audiences from ICP leads. And I think this is mainly due to the fact to how much actually data we had in our first-party data lists. We had a ton of data for the ICP leads, for the MQLs, data that's been gathering over the past 5 years, let's say. So we had a lot to provide to LinkedIn's AI when we turned them into predictive audiences. With another client, which we're currently working with, we're kind of following the same model. And we do see with them that actually the campaigns perform better with predictive audiences based off of opportunities. There we're testing predictive audiences based off of prospects, so leads that would be just leads. I wouldn't say MQL, so leads compared to predictive audiences from opportunities. And yes, there we do have stronger data on the opportunity side, and we do see it performing better. So yeah. Okay. In the beginning, in the agenda, we also mentioned that we will show you 2 case studies. This is one of them, where we partner with Snaplogic to improve their cost per MQL, and to also show how predictive audiences can shift the focus from kind of this like broad lead generation to more high intent engagement. In the beginning, the challenge was that we've been getting a great amount of lead volume through LinkedIn over the past few quarters with Snaplogic. However, the issue was that very few of those leads were actually turning into marketing qualified leads. And this is where we wanted to improve. And LinkedIn's predictive audiences helped us in Q4 last year to really drastically lower our acquisition costs while increasing engagement from high intent prospects. And as we can see here, our approach was building lists around the different lifecycle stages that the client had in their CRM and converting that into predictive audiences. And once we tested everything over the course of a quarter, we saw that predictive audiences actually brought a 486% increase in CTR compared to other LinkedIn programs in that quarter. So it was definitely a drastic change for us in terms of engagement. And of course, we also saw decrease in CPL, 78%, decrease in the cost per ICP lead, this custom metric that we mentioned earlier, so 71% there. And we also had 80% cheaper cost per MQL than what we had in total for the account for Q4. So really impressive metrics we were able to see with predictive audiences.
I've muted myself. Moving on to the second case study. It's kind of in the works still, but we can share a couple of results. Similar to Snaplogic story, this client has similar results. However, we had a different strategy there. In this case, instead of lead gen, we use website conversions, which is not the preferred objective, I would say, for lead generation. So usually this is a little bit more difficult objective to gain results from. And despite all of that, with the predictive audiences, we had about 46 times less expensive leads with this audience compared to the rest of the audiences. And also we have around 10 times less expensive quality leads. The way we measure it is we have a custom lead. We just have a custom kind of lead naming convention that we use, and it includes certain job titles that we really need to measure how much we've got from those. So one note here is that we mainly used the best performing assets here. So this is definitely a factor. But we also decided to test something different, and we decided to test not only using just first-party data list, that we could use also the LinkedIn Conversions API as a seed list. So with this, we had to make the audience up to 100 times larger. There was no other way to do this, but in the small period of time that we've actually tested this has proved that it's twice as less expensive than using a seed list from a contact list, which is huge. This is a huge difference. We still have the same differences, so we still have to add further exclusions and so on. However, it seems to be a lot more efficient in actually gaining leads. And despite all of the seed lists, especially the lower funnel ones that we have added, we still haven't had any success with demo. This is kind of in comparison to Snaplogic's case. This could be due to a lot of factors. Again, this is a very different approach because we are using website conversions, but it was something to keep in mind that using different objectives can actually work with predictive audiences as well. And this is an example of how expensive these leads could actually be expensive, in kind of saying this sarcastically, because this is an example of how they look like. So for example, the lead gen forms, a demo, which usually gives us quite a high quality lead, is around 144 as a cost. We have other ones which could be spread across different regions, but we kind of rank them from cheap to cheaper to the cheapest. And the cheapest we've gotten so far with lead gen forms and first party data is about $7, which is insane for a lead. And with the website conversions, of course, the numbers would look a little bit different, but they are quite similar. So with the same approach, the kind of the cheapest we've got is around $38, which for website conversions, if anyone is using that objective in LinkedIn knows that this is very, very low. But this is kind of the ranking that we made because we were very impressed by the results in terms of cost.
Yeah, those are some great results, guys. Just a quick question here for this account. What are the average costs for the account?
So for the lead gen form client, I would say the average is about 300 maybe as an average. So 350 maybe. So this is quite significant. And actually for the website conversions account, this is a lot larger in terms of the difference. I do believe we were closer to 1K, 1.5K as a normal CPL. As I mentioned, website conversions can be very tricky as an objective. So seeing such results and such a vast difference with predictive audiences is quite significant.
Yeah. Thanks.
Of course. And then moving on with all of this knowledge and experimenting that we've done, we have a couple of we've gathered a couple of points that we want to make. So firstly, it is essential to check your ICP. One tool that we used and could be used as well is when you upload the seed list, you can check from the Insights tab in LinkedIn how much they actually align with who you're looking for, because sometimes there could be some differences. And because LinkedIn's AI is going to fetch people who are based on that seed list, there might be, because as we mentioned, there are some exclusions that you might add. You could see those from in advance, essentially. So definitely check your ICP and whether it fits, and the seed lists actually fit who you're looking for. The second thing is your first party lists. We have used up to 2 years because we want to make sure that the data is as relevant as possible. Of course, the more data, the better. However, we need to make sure that it is relevant, and we don't want to fetch someone and chase someone who was the ICP 3 or 5 years ago. So we want to make sure that everything is up to date. And as we mentioned, check the audience size, make sure that it is as close to the original as possible. And if you do use website conversions API, so LinkedIn's conversions API, obviously you would need to make it as larger as you can, so up to 100 times, because at some point they do start chasing people that are not as relevant. So you want to make sure that you're getting the people you want.
Absolutely. And what we have next is lead quality. What we found out with Danny is that lead quality is not always within the ICP, but it's still very high quality. So just as an example here, something that also goes back to what Danny said for check your ICP. Initially, when we worked with one list for closed won opportunities, we found out that actually every contact that's associated with this company becomes a closed one in terms of status. And this list had a lot of people from sales, marketing, just a lot of other functions within the company that we wouldn't really wanting to target. Hence, check the ICP, as Danny said in the first place. But despite that, despite having job titles that weren't 100% what we wanted to align with the ICP, we still had all those other job titles still had very, very high quality. So that still was a great bonus. It wasn't like other products where we've tested and we found out that they were very, very far from the ICP and anything that we want to work with. So yes, quality is maintained. However, what our LinkedIn reps kind of advised us was to keep a very close eye on the predictive audiences and make sure that we check the quality every week. So this is something we used to do in the beginning every single week. We were downloading the leads, we were going through them, making sure the title is okay. Also, one thing they've suggested is that as time passes, they do find out that the quality kind of it's not really as strong as it is in the beginning, and this could be the case because maybe we're exhausting the audience. As we saw a few slides back, we were working with really small audiences in some of the cases, so maybe 3,000 people we were targeting, and when we run that over a course of 1, 2, 3 months, quality tends to kind of decrease towards the end. So yeah, make sure you check quality and you check it on a regular basis here. Then the next thing we wanted to point out was that CPC was definitely way higher than what we would usually see on LinkedIn campaigns. So this is something that will definitely strike you, but the CTR is also high. So despite having to pay more for a click, we do see higher engagement coming from that. And we're also seeing this result in the number of leads we're getting for way less cost than we used to do before. So it kind of, I think it averages out. And at the end, we see that we're targeting members who are more active on LinkedIn, they're more engaged on LinkedIn. In some cases, we have seen leads when we launch, for example, a few different content pieces, we do see them not downloading just one, but maybe downloading 2, 3. We can track their engagement in the client CRM. So yes, it's definitely worth it if we're looking to engage with more high intent prospects on LinkedIn. And then last but not least, we have seen that for some clients and for some objectives, like Danny mentioned, it works well with bottom funnel CTAs. Of course, it's very much dependent on the business, on the way campaigns are set up. But we have found success with testing awareness, traffic, and bottom funnel CTAs such as demo. So definitely feel free to test them out. We were very surprised by the results we received initially and that we keep receiving ever since we started testing them a year ago. So it's definitely worth a try. Yeah. And some final thoughts. All in all, as I mentioned, we were able to we started actually with something very small with predictive audiences. We started out as a test, which showed us these great results over the first quarter that we tested it in. So afterwards, we've expanded that practice over a lot of accounts. And we definitely see that it helps us bring prospects that are more likely to engage and convert for the business. So it's definitely a good choice, I think, for you to try and integrate it into your strategy today. And overall, we see that for some clients, it works really, really well with their bottom funnel strategy. It also something interesting that came up is that, and something that we want to continue with Danny as a test, is testing predictive audiences with different ad formats. We've started doing that initially only with single image campaigns. Now we do have campaigns with video and document ads, and we do see some really, really great results as a beginning there. So I would definitely encourage you to try and test out the different LinkedIn ad formats that are out there. And I think lastly, what Danny said about LinkedIn audiences working best with.
I would add, this is kind of a insight that I've gathered once we were actually preparing this presentation, is that maybe the predictive audiences would be working best with LinkedIn products. So it would be with lead gen forms, it would be with document ads, so definitely with conversions API as well. So essentially not just a seed list, uploading it, and just actually using conversions API. And because so far, once we've tested predictive audience with a LinkedIn product, it usually performs better. So why not combine them all together and see what happens? Definitely something to test. But yes, in conclusion, definitely worthwhile to experiment. It doesn't need an initial large cost to experiment with. I wouldn't say this is the best. I wouldn't say this is would be the main strategy of the LinkedIn account, but it definitely can take quite a significant part of it, even if it's not budget-wise. It can definitely boost the performance of the entire account. So definitely experiment with it. And
that was great, guys. Thank you so much. It was super interesting, at least for me, as someone who's not really doing anything like that yet. Maybe we'll
One
see.
day.
One day, yes. Yeah, super interesting. Hoping we'll be able to share more case studies when we have, after you guys work on some more, testing. And yeah, I hope the people also find it useful. I think it's super useful. The recording this session, guys, is going to be recorded and is going to be on the LinkedIn page for as much as it can, I think forever, or at least until I remove it. But yes, you can watch it anytime if you were not able to join us live, or if you just want to rewatch it again, or just kind of stop at like a specific time to check something on the slides. And yeah, thanks again for joining our live session number 3. And yeah, see you again very soon. We are working on a 4th session, of course. It's going to be very soon, and we hope to see you there as well. And thank you so much, Danny and Gala, for joining us and sharing your work with us, your testing and your results, and again your tips for how to make this work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.